everyone. Today is the 16th of Kislev, which means there's 3 days left to Yudtes Kislev. Yudtes Kislev, the 19th of Kislev, is the festival that celebrates two major events in the Hasidic calendar and Hasidic history. One is it's the yahrzeit of the Maggid of Vayishlach, successor of the Baal Shem Tov, the teacher and mentor of the Rebbe of the Tanya who works the study. And the second is that it's the festival of liberation of the Alter Rebbe, the Baal. So let's begin with mentioning something in connection with the Mizrich Maggid. His yahrzeit is on Yudtes Kislev. And so it's probably something I've mentioned before, but I think it's very fundamental. Mishnah says in Pirkei Avos, know what is above you. Simple meaning of this Mishnah is know that there's the Almighty is watching you from above. The Maggid of Vayishlach gives a much deeper interpretation of this Mishnah. It says, you should know, everything that's going on up there is mimach, it's coming from you. You're in the driver's seat. You're the one who's making it happen. To know the power that you have. Every good deed that you do has a tremendous influence. As we stressed in the Sikha that we read a few weeks ago, in connection with the events that are taking place in Cologne, the Rebbe emphasizes that everyone has to know that everything that we do has an impact. As the Rambam says, that a person should always imagine himself equally balanced in good and evil, and the whole world equally balanced in good and evil. And one good deed, one good word, one good thought, you can tip the scale to the side of good, bring for yourself and the entire world salvation. In general, one has to know that one's deeds and one's words and one's thoughts have a tremendous power. And it affects the situation in heaven. You should know, Ma'ala, what's going on in heaven, which obviously has an impact on what's going on earth. What's going on earth is managed and directed and governed by what goes on in heaven. To know that what's going on in heaven is in your hand. Mimach, it comes from you. So it's a tremendous responsibility together with a tremendous privilege. The passing of the Maggid was in Tav Kuf Lamed Gimel, that is 1772. And in Tav Kuf Nun Tes, which is 1798, the Alter Rebbe was liberated from prison on the same day that the simple story as on the earthly plane is that the opponents of Chassidus felt that their best chance to eliminate the Hasidic movement would be to eliminate the Alter Rebbe. And therefore, they slandered him to the Tsarist regime. And one of the major parts of the slander was that he is providing funds. He's sending funds to the Sultan of Turkey, who was then in odds with the Tsar. This was in taking consideration that the Alter Rebbe had undertaken. There were a group of disciples of the Maggid that had emigrated to Eretz Yisrael and established a Hasidic community in Eretz Yisrael. The Alter Rebbe had undertaken to raise funds to keep this community afloat. The Alter Rebbe had organized an institution called Pelul Chabad, Tzidkas Rameir Balanes, where he had his Hasidim donate regularly and raise funds for the upkeep of this community. And the funds were sent to Eretz Yisrael. Being that Eretz Yisrael was then under Turkish rule, the Turkish Sultan and the Tsar were at odds with each other. There was tension between them. So to tell the Tsarist regime that there's a person here that's sending funds to the enemy lines, sending funds to the Turkish Sultan was a good piece of lashon hara that could cause a lot of trouble. That they added that the Alter Rebbe teaches that Malchus, kingship, the lowest of the 10 spheres, and emphasizes in his public teachings that Malchus has nothing of its own, and it's the lowest level, and which they interpreted to be degrading to royalty, to kings. And there were various other little addendums to that, and they suggested that they shouldn't rely, the Tsarist regime should not rely on the local government in Lithuania, Belarus, whatever it was. But rather they should arrest the Alter Rebbe and bring him to Petersburg and have it worked out in Petersburg, have it investigated properly by the central government of Petersburg. And the Alter Rebbe was arrested 2 days after Sukkot of that year, and he was brought to Petersburg, where he was kept in prison for 52, 53 days, corresponding to the 53 chapters of Tanya. And he had Mesiras Nefesh. He suffered Yisurei Mavis 53 days, and on the 19th of Kislev, he was liberated. Now, the Alter Rebbe told over later that when he was in prison, the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid came from the other world to visit him. And he asked them, why am I in prison? What's the reason? They said to him, because you're disseminating the teachings of Chassidus. And there's an accusation against you in heaven as a result of this. So he asked, if that's the case, when I'm liberated from here, should I insist on disseminating Chassidus? They said, no. Once you've began, you should continue. It's understood to mean that when you become liberated, that will mean that the heavenly court has given a green light to the dissemination. In other words, there's an accusation of kitrug against the dissemination of Chassidus. And with the Mesiras Nefesh of the Alter Rebbe and the tefillas of all the mitzvahs and Ma'asim Tovim which were done, this kitrug was, this accusation, this heavenly accusation, was pushed aside, and it was decided in heaven to give a green light to the dissemination of Chassidus, and the encouragement that it gives Yidden to serve Hashem with extra enthusiasm and extra devotion, extra joy, that will pave the way for the coming of Mashiach. So I'm just concluding. I'll take a question. So the 19th of Kislev doesn't only commemorate the fact that the Alter Rebbe, as an individual human being, a tzaddik, was liberated from prison. It also means the green light given for the dissemination of Chassidus for all generations in preparation for the coming of Mashiach. So it's a Yom Tov, it's incredibly meaningful Yom Tov for Yidden, for all walks of life. And the Alter Rebbe said that those who will celebrate my celebration, I will take them in Hametzer al Amercha, from the straits to the breadth, and Min HaGehenim, he promised incredible things for those that participate in this celebration. So this Shabbos is Yom Kislev. It's a tremendous opportunity for everybody to be part of this celebration. If you daven in a Chabad shul, I'm sure there'll be a Fabring in there. On Motzei Shabbos, there is an Inspire conference, Melava Malka, to the Kislev being held in Stafford Hill, and the Seder Taylor Hall, with a guest speaker coming from America, Russell Field, who many people listen to Shiur online. Incredible teacher. I'm sure that people will enjoy very much listening to him. The atmosphere over there is going to be incredible. So whoever, and it's men and women with a pizza. So anyone who hasn't signed up yet, still an opportunity to sign up, and I'm sure it's well worth your efforts. Sorry, what do you want to ask? It's just the Kippur was in heaven. What happened on earth, the question that was asked was this what I mentioned about the Kippur, the accusation. What I mentioned two things. I mentioned what went on an earthly plane is that the opponents of Chassidus slandered the Alter Rebbe. But when on the heavenly plane is that there was an accusation against the Alter Rebbe. So the question was, did the acts that were done on earth by the opponents, did that trigger the accusation? I never understood it that way. I don't think that's the case. I think there are two things happening alongside each other, and what goes on earth is usually a byproduct of what's going on in heaven. Because it's in heaven, therefore there was a problem on earth. Why was there a kibbutz? So the simple understanding is that things are meant to be equally balanced. Powers of good and the powers of evil should have an equal chance. And when the revelation of Chassidus brought such an incredible light to it, the more it's disseminated, the more people are being inspired by it. So the powers that are tasked with the job of holding things back, and keeping the darkness going, are concerned that we're going to be out of business. Such a light completely put us out of business. So they come along with a time that it's not fair. So there's this is given consideration. Yes. Yeah, okay. So the question was over here about what was the position of the people who made the slander, where were they coming from, and what was their position? So originally, the very early times of the Hasidic movement, there were people that opposed the Hasidic movement, and they meant well. They were concerned that because the Hasidic movement put so much emphasis on serving Hashem with the heart, which is something that every Jew can equally participate in, it's taking away from the focus on Torah study, because in the general population at the time, Torah scholars got all the attention, and the simple people were ignored. So that byproduct of that is that Torah scholarship became something that everybody should be striving for, which is a good thing. However, with the Baal Shem Tov putting the emphasis on the neshama, love, and the enthusiasm, and the heart, serving at them with the heart, well, there was a concern that that might take away from the focus on Torah study. The truth is that the Baal Shem Tov taught about the greatness of Torah study in a whole new dimension of it, which is incomparable to what was focused on before. So the Baal Shem Tov's teachings only brought a greater enthusiasm of Torah study, and a greater enthusiasm in davening, and a greater enthusiasm in the keeping of mitzvahs. But it could be understood why people were concerned, especially when there were earlier in Jewish history, there were movements that were introduced that didn't have such good results. So it was people that are anxious and worried. There's room for it to be understood how initially they were concerned, but then after one or two generations, it became clear that Chassidim are only more devoted to Torah study and only more devoted to keeping of mitzvahs and only more devoted to Yiddishkeit. So there wasn't really that much reason for any legitimate opposition. But generally, when there's legitimate opposition, it produces some illegitimate opposition as well, the people that enjoy machlekes. So this brought about that people took it to a further level. As long as the Vilna Gaon was alive, nobody dared take it to this level. After the Vilna Gaon passed away, things got a little bit out of hand, and this was taken to the level of slandering the Alter Rebbe to the government, and accusing him of being a revolutionary czar, which could have had very serious repercussions. Miraculously, he was found to be fully innocent on all charges, and on the 19th of Kislev, he was liberated. This was like a green light for the movement of Chassidim to go full force. To move on, we usually start with something about the Tevra. So there's something fascinating that actually Vayishlach Pratis is connected with the Rambam that is being studied. Those that study 3 chapters Rambam a day, Rambam is being studied this week. It's actually connected with something in this week's Seder, quite fascinating. We're learning now about the laws of Tumah and Taf, spiritual impurity and spiritual purity. A specific section of the Rambam is being learned at the moment is the Shar of Esakuris. There's various things that the Torah decrees make a person unclean when he comes in contact with it. So we know, for example, the Torah says that coming in contact with the dead body makes a person coming in contact with a Metzoida makes a person coming in contact with Nevela, carcass of an animal makes a person coming, Sheret, certain reptiles when they die to make you tummy. There's various things that the Torah declares make a person coming. One of the things that the Torah that is not mentioned in the Torah makes you coming, but it's a severe and most severe prohibition in the Torah, is avodah zarah, idolatry, an idol. A person takes an idol and he dedicates it. This is my God, serves it, he worships it, he sacrifices to it, he sings to it, he dances before it, he makes it into a deity that comes out of avodah zarah, and that object is forbidden for a Jew to have any benefit from. Yeah? To the extent, let's say, a person is walking in the street and it's raining, they want to get shelter, and there's a house of avodah zarah, and there's a piece of the roof sticking out. and you want to stand under it to protect yourself from the rain, you're not allowed to do that. If you're benefiting from Avodah Zarah. However, it doesn't say anywhere in the Torah that Avodah Zarah makes you tummy. Nevertheless, like we have in every other area of Yiddishkeit, there are laws that are min Torah, and there are laws that are midrabanan. The Chachamim added extra stringencies to various mitzvahs, and there's things that are permissible min Torah but forbidden midrabanan. So in these laws of Tumah and Tara, there are certain things that the Chachamim decree should make one tummy. One of the things that the Chachamim decree should make one tummy is Avodah Zarah. So if one touches an idol, something which is being worshipped as a deity, it makes one tummy under certain conditions. The kazayis has to be a complete structure, and has to touch it. That makes one tummy. Midrabon, b'divrei Shabbat. So the Rambam begins the 6th chapter of Hilchos Avos HaTumas. He says that Avodah Zarah makes one tummy midivrei Shabbat. It's a rabbinic law. He said, "Vayishlach remez min haTorah." But there's a pasuk in the Torah which alludes to this rabbinic decree. It's interesting, even though it's only rabbinic, but often we find in the Gemara that there are certain things that are rabbinic, and nevertheless there's a pasuk in the Torah that alludes to it. So obviously the strict meaning of the pasuk is something else, but the Chachamim leaned their decree on the pasuk in the Torah. So when it comes to the concept of Avodah Zarah makes a person tamei, there's a pasuk in the Torah, happens to be in this week's Seder, and the Rambam says is a remez min haTorah for this. What's the pasuk? We all remember in this week's Seder we have the story of Shechem, right? Shechem abducted Dinah, and then Shimon and Levi went to get even with the people of Shechem, and they eventually the whole story, and the people of Shechem the men of Shechem were killed, and the women and children were taken captive, and they took the spoils of Shechem. So after the story of Shechem, it says that Yaakov said to his family, "Hasiru asalekei hanechar asher b'seifer." Remove the foreign gods that are in your midst. Meaning that when he took the spoils of Shechem, they took everything. Amongst the spoils of the people of Shechem were idol worshippers. So amongst the spoils that he took from Shechem, there were also idols. So he told them to sift through all the rubble, all the spoils that he took from Shechem, and remove the idols. V'hitaru, and purify yourself. V'achlifu sim leseichem, and change your clothes. V'nakuma v'na'ala beisel, and we'll go to the house of God, we'll make an altar, and we'll offer sacrifices to Hashem. So if you read the pasuk simply, it says, let's get rid of all the idols, and then purify yourself. Which seems to imply that if you come in contact with an idol, it makes you impure, and you need to purify yourself. V'hitaru. So that's a remez min haTorah that Avodah Zarah makes you tamei. Although it's not a halacha min haTorah, it's a halacha only with Rabbanan, but it has a remez min haTorah. That is the introduction that the Rambam gives to the subject of Tumas Avodah Zarah. And then there's various paragraphs in the Rambam following that gives you all the intricate laws of this decree associated with this decree. So what's interesting is, first of all, the fact that the Rambam makes reference to the Remez min haTorah. The Rambam is a sefer of halacha. He just has to say that the halacha is that if you touch Avodah Zarah, you become tamei midivrei sefer. Doesn't have to tell you where the Remez is in the Torah. And even if he, for some reason, does want to bring a Remez min haTorah, there's actually a few places in the Mishnah and the Gemara where the Mishnah and the Gemara mentions various psukim in the Torah that are the basis in the Torah for the Tumah of Avodah Zarah. And the Mishnah and the Gemara doesn't bring this pasuk. The Mishnah, one of the psukim that's brought is shaketz to shaktzenu, that Avodah Zarah is compared to a shaketz, to a reptile. Avodah Zarah is compared, there's another pasuk in Tanakh that compares Avodah Zarah to a dead body, to a grave. So it's similar to a dead body that makes you tamei. Another pasuk in that compares Avodah Zarah. There's all kinds of psukim, 3 psukim that are brought in Gemara and in Mishnah about Tumas Avodah Zarah. This pasuk that the Rambam brings is not found anywhere in the Mishnah or in the Gemara or in the commonly known Midrashim. So the first question is, why does the Rambam bring a pasuk at? And if he does, The pasuk is from this week's Seder, but the connection to Avodah Zarah is not brought in any Mishnah or Gemara. The connection to Tumas Avodah Zarah, the connection to this halach that the Chachamim decreed that Avodah Zarah should make the tamei, that is associated with this pasuk, is not written anywhere in the Mishnah or the Gemara or any of the well-known midrashim. Obviously, the Rambam found it somewhere, but why does he dig up a pasuk which is so unusually associated with this halacha rather than take one of the psukim that are found in the Mishnah or the Gemara? So, in order to understand the answer to this question, we have to begin by explaining that the whole concept of an Avodah Zarah being tamei can be understood in two ways. One way it can be understood is that the Chachamim said, the Torah says Avodah Zarah is forbidden. You're not allowed to have any benefit from it. So we're going to go a step further. Not only is it forbidden, it also makes you tamei. So the object of Avodah Zarah, the Chachamim wanted to go a step further than what it says in the Torah. The Torah says it's forbidden, and the Chachamim said, in addition to being forbidden, it also has a tumah to it. That's one way of understanding. Another way of understanding is that the Chachamim were not interested in adding to the severity of the object of Avodah Zarah. They were only concerned that people might come in contact with Avodah Zarah. If you come in contact with Avodah Zarah, who knows what that will lead to? So therefore, they wanted to distance people from Avodah Zarah. So they said, Avodah Zarah is going to make you tamei. If you touch Avodah Zarah, you're going to become tamei. You're not going to be able to go into the Beis Hamikdash. You're not going to be able to eat truma. You're not going to be able to eat karbanis. So that will encourage you to stay away, keep your distance from Avodah Zarah. So it's not about the object of Avodah Zarah, it's about the people. Keep the people distant from Avodah Zarah. Therefore, they made this gzeira that Avodah Zarah makes you tamei. But they weren't focused on the object. They were focused on the people. Look at the words of the Rabbi. He says, "Yesh lo remez min haTorah." It has it's alluded to in the Torah. What's the pasuk? Hasiru asalakei hanechar asher b'seichem. Remove the foreign gods that are in your midst. What is that pasuk telling us? How does the Rambam view this institution of the Chachamim that Avodah Zarah should make you tamei? By using the pasuk Hasiru asalakei hanechar asher b'seichem, remove the foreign gods that are in your midst. It's quite clear that the Rambam is leaning in the direction that the decree of the Chachamim was about distancing people from Avodah Zarah. It's not about giving the Avodah Zarah another power that it also makes you tamei. It's about Hasiru asalakei hanechar asher b'seichem, that you should remove yourself from Avodah Zarah. Now, why is it important? What difference does it make if you look at it this way, you look at it that way? So the answer is very simple. The prohibition of Avodah Zarah, of an idol, is very different from all other prohibitions in the Torah. In all other prohibitions of the Torah, you have a factual existence. And the Torah comes along and says this factual existence is forbidden. For example, non-kosher animals. Take a chazer. A chazer is a fact. It's a reality. And out of a chazer, people make certain slices of meat. Pork, ham, whatever it is, yeah? Comes along the Torah and tells you this reality is forbidden. Take, for example, a mixture of milk and meat. Mixture of milk and meat is a reality. This reality, there's a mixture of milk and meat, the Torah says is forbidden. Chametz on Pesach. The reality, to have a loaf of bread on Pesach is chametz. Or a bottle of vodka on Pesach is chametz. And the Torah says, don't eat this loaf of bread, don't drink this, don't have it in your possession, don't have any benefit from it. So you're taking a reality, and Torah makes it a forbidden thing. Avodah Zarah, on the other hand, is all in the mind of a person. Take this glass. Let's say somebody takes this glass and says, this glass is my God. It created the world. I'm totally dependent on it. It provides for me, it gives me my health, it gives me my parnasa. It's all dependent on this glass. And therefore, I'm going to pray to it, I'm going to sing to it, I'm going to bring sacrifices to it. Yeah, so if a person says that, this glass becomes an Avodah Zarah, it becomes forbidden. Not because it's anything different in this glass than any other glass in the world or any other object. It's all in the mind of the person, because the person decided in his mind, this is in his imagination, his false imagination, there's something unique about this glass, therefore it becomes an Avodah Zarah. So what Avodah Zarah is somebody's making an issue out of nothing. So therefore, in the laws of Avodah Zarah, we want to try to minimize Avodah Zarah as much as we can. For example, there's a halacha, quite well known, that you're not allowed to make an Avodah Zarah into a landmark. Now let it tell a person, let's meet at 12 o'clock by this and this avodah zarah, by this and this idol worship. You can meet by the bank, you can meet by the post office, you can meet by the train station, you can meet by the lamppost, but not by an avodah zarah. Because when you make an avodah zarah into a landmark, you're giving it extra validity, extra importance. And we don't want to give, well, you're maximizing its importance. We want to minimize avodah zarah, not maximize it. Yeah? So if that's why, because since the whole avodah zarah came into existence through somebody's imagination that maximized it, made a big deal out of nothing. So the way to battle that is by preventing it being maximized, and the other way, minimize it as much as you can. Right? So don't give it importance. Don't refer to it by its name. Don't give it respect. Don't give it honor. Okay, so the question was about Jewish people visiting and going to see places of worship of other religions, and it's very, very iffy. It's very questionable. It's first of all, a Jew that has the right spirit of approach to Yiddishkeit shouldn't even have a desire to see to go and visit such a place. It's the total antithesis of everything we believe in. We believe in one God, and here there are religions that are propagating other ideas, and it's Yidden in history were prepared to go on Mesiras Nefesh when they wanted to be forced, when Goyim tried to force Yidden to go into a church and listen to the Galus Drasha, Yidden gave up their lives rather than do that. So the idea of when people go sightseeing and have to go see a cathedral and this and that is very, very foreign to a Yiddishkeit that has any feeling. Halachically, there's questions as well. There's severe questions. But coming back to our point, so being that avodah zarah becomes an issue through the fact that somebody in their mind and in their actions makes a big deal out of it. So we try to minimize avodah zarah as much as we can, and that's the way we have. For example, the law that I mentioned, you're not allowed to make an avodah zarah into a landmark. Yeah. So if that's the case, that question is automatically asked. When the Chachamim came along and they made an additional halacha, that besides the fact that an avodah zarah is forbidden, it also makes you tummy. Aren't they giving more power to the avodah zarah? They're saying the avodah zarah is not just a forbidden entity; it also has the power to make you impure and to prevent you from going to the Beis Hamikdash, prevent you from eating truma, from eating karbanis. So they're giving extra power to the avodah zarah. Why would we want to do that? We want to minimize avodah zarah, not maximize it. So therefore, the Rambam is very clear at the very beginning of the laws of Tumas avodah zarah, and he says, "I want you to understand what this is all about. This is based on the pasuk in the Torah, Hasiru asolekei anecha Hashem b'seicha." It's not about giving extra strength to the avodah zarah. It's about distancing people from the avodah zarah. Yes, once this halacha is set into motion, there are certain effects of coming in contact with avodah zarah. If a person comes in contact with avodah zarah, if an object comes in contact with avodah zarah, but the basis upon which it's built is in the spirit of the law is all about distancing people from avodah zarah. It's not about giving any extra power to the avodah zarah itself. So this is the explanation of why. Now, significance of this is there's a Mishnah. The Mishnah says that there were non-Jews that asked the scholars of the Talmud, if your God dislikes, despises idol worship, it seems from so many places in the Torah that Hashem is not very pleased with that, why doesn't he eliminate it? After all, you believe that your God is all-powerful, he's almighty. So if he doesn't like idol worship, why doesn't he eliminate it? So the Mishnah says, the Chachamim answered them, because the idol worshippers chose strange deities. Some worship the sun, some worship the moon, some worship the rivers, some worship the seas. So you want the Almighty to destroy his world because of a few fools, because of a few idiots. So he said, if that's the case, okay, that explains why he doesn't eliminate the sun, the moon, the rivers, and the sea. But what about all the other deities that people have chosen to serve? People have chosen statues. Why doesn't he eliminate those? So the Chachamim answered them, because since some people are serving sun and the moon and the rivers and the seas. So other people are serving statues. So if he's going to eliminate all the others and not eliminate these, then the worshipers of the sun will come along and say, you see, our God is the real God. Well, the others were all eliminated and ours wasn't, so he must be the real one. So in order not to give room for that argument, Hashem doesn't interfere and he doesn't eliminate any. Yeah. So you could take it really a step further. How could there be a possibility for Avodah Zarah at any level? The only way there could be a possibility is when suggestion comes up in someone's mind that perhaps this or something else, or a statue, or the sun, or the moon, or the stars, or the rivers, or the seas, whatever it is God. Certainly, the fact that a suggestion comes up in someone's mind is also part of God's creation. It wouldn't exist if God didn't create it. So why doesn't he eliminate the suggestive ability in the mind of a human being that there is another God? Just like the Mishnah or in the Gemara asks, why doesn't he eliminate idol worship? You can ask, take it a step further. Why doesn't he eliminate the suggestion in the human mind that there could be another God? And then there wouldn't be a problem with Avodah Zarah. So if God dislikes Avodah Zarah, despises Avodah Zarah, there's a simple solution. He just shouldn't create the suggestion of Avodah Zarah. And what's the answer? Very simple. God doesn't want that there shouldn't be Avodah Zarah because he eliminated it. He wants that we should eliminate it. In other words, Gemara says that when Hashem was dictating to Moshe Rabbeinu, when he came to the pasuk, "Vayomer Elokim nasa Adam b'tzalmeinu k'kusei," the Almighty said, "Let us make man in our form. Let us make man in our image and our form." So Moshe Rabbeinu said, "Hold it. This is trouble. This is trouble. You're looking for trouble. Don't write this in the Torah. Do me a favor. Don't write this, because this is going to cause people to have a proof from the Torah that there's multiplicity in godliness." Right? It says in clearly the Torah, "Vayomer Elokim," and God said, "Nasa, let us make man in our image and our form." So I don't want to write this. So Hashem said to Moshe, "Ksoi, you write what I'm telling you to write. One who wants to be mistaken, one who wants to misunderstand it, go ahead and misunderstand it." In other words, if you're looking for the truth, you're going to find the truth. You're looking to misinterpret, go right ahead. So what does that teach us? It teaches us that Hashem didn't want a world where there's no possibility of misinterpretation. He didn't want a world where there's no possibility of making a mistake, of getting it wrong. He wanted a world where there is a possibility of getting it wrong. And in that world where there is a possibility of getting it wrong, man should strive to get it right and succeed. So a world where there's no possibility that a suggestion can arise in a person's mind to serve idol worship, that's not the world that Hashem wants. Hashem wants a world where their people have the suggestion in their mind that they should go astray. And despite the fact that they have the suggestion in their mind that they should go astray, they'll take control of that and devote themselves to Hashem and not go astray. And that's the pasuk. You remove the foreign gods that are in your midst. Hashem is not going to do it for you. You need to do it. Because that's what he wants. He wants that there should be a possibility for going astray, and you should decide and commit yourself to stay on the straight and narrow and not go astray. And this takes it a step further. We know that every mitzvah is a byproduct of Anochi Hashem Elokecha. I am the Lord your God, in the Ten Commandments. And every Aveda is a byproduct of L'yilach Elokim Acheinu Alpana. I don't have other gods beside me. In fact, it says, Torah tziva lanu Moshe. Moshe commanded us Torah. What's Torah? Torah has a numerical value. Taf is 400, Vav is 6, Space is 200, and Hey is 5. Those are good at math. Would have worked out that the total numerical value of the word Torah is 611. So Moshe commanded us 611. We all know the 613 mitzvahs. Why did Moshe only command us 611? The answer is because 2 of them we heard directly from Hashem. Which are the 2 that we heard directly from Hashem? Anochi and Lo Yilecha. I am the Lord your God, and you shall have no other gods beside me. We heard straight from Hashem by Mount Sinai. The 611 other mitzvahs we heard from Moshe. Why these 2 mitzvahs specific? So in Tanya we learned, Alter Rebbe brings from Chazal, that these 2 mitzvahs, Anochi and Lo Yilecha, are klolus kol haTorah. They are the encapsulation and the generalization of the entire Torah. All the positive mitzvahs are details in Anochi Hashem Elokecha. And all the negative mitzvahs are details of Lo Yilecha Elokim Acheinu. Because when you transgress a negative mitzvah, you're basically telling God, you're not my authority. You can't tell me what to do. I'll do what I want. So you're rejecting his authority, his deity. And when you do a positive mitzvah, you're committing yourself to Hashem's deity. So it's a detail that makes Hashem look at. So that if that's the case, so any aveda that a person does is in a small manner avodah zarah. So the same question that we asked about avodah zarah, we can ask about any aveda. Why did the Eibishter create the possibility for sin? If he doesn't want sin, he clearly is against it. So why did he create the opportunity for it? In other words, let's describe it like this. Let's take food. Food can be divided into three categories. There's mitzvah food, like matzah on Pesach night, like kiddush, wine for kiddush, right? And then there's permissible food, kosher food, good hefsher. And then there's forbidden food. We have a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos that tells us, Kol Masha Barak Hakadosh Baruch Hu B'Olamei Lo El L'Chvei. Everything that Hashem created in this world is created for His glory. Now, how do I glorify Hashem with the wheat that's going to be used for matzahs, or with the flour that's going to be baked into matzahs, or with the matzahs itself? Very simple. I fulfill the mitzvah of Achilas Matzah on Pesach night, and I'm glorifying Hashem by fulfilling His mitzvahs. How do I serve Hashem with kosher food? It's not mitzvah food, but permissible food. I make a bracha beforehand. I make a bracha afterwards. I eat it l'shem shamayim. I eat it with the intention to serve Hashem with the power of the food that I'm getting from that food. And with that, I'm glorifying Hashem. But there's also forbidden food, right? That chocolate bar that's sitting in the newsagent that's chalav and it's tempting. That's not glorifying Hashem. That's distracting me. That's making it difficult for me to glorify Hashem. So if everything that Hashem created in this world is for His glory, why did He create that chalav chocolate bar in the newsagent? Every time I walk in there, I have a problem with it. The answer is very simple. The answer is that's what Hashem wants. He wants that you should see that chocolate bar. And you should make a conscious decision. I'm not going to buy it. I'm not going to eat it because that's what Hashem wants. And by doing that, you're glorifying Hashem. So the role of non-kosher food or non-kosher anything that you come across in the world is to give you an opportunity to glorify Hashem by rejecting it. So this is the meaning of the pasuk. Why is there such a thing as Elokei HaNechar? Why are there foreign gods in the world in all their forms and fashions? So that you should fulfill the mitzvah of removing it. We say in the Shema every day, don't stray after your heart and after your eyes, which you tend to stray after. In other words, Hashem says, I'm going to create a world in which the nature of people is going to be to stray. And I want you to take on that challenge and not stray and remain focused. So when you have a temptation to do the wrong thing and you resist the temptation and you say, for Hashem's sake, I'm going to do the right thing, I'm not going to do the wrong thing, that is fulfilling an incredible mitzvah which draws down, we learned in Tanya, how the positive energy which is drawn down into the world through the fulfillment of the mitzvah of the Zohar says is greater than any other praise that we give Hashem. So the whole thing exists in order to give us the opportunity to glorify Hashem by not doing it. So this gives us, and it's very much connected with Kislev, the idea that Chassidus shines a light on life and shows you how everything is for the service of Hashem. The positive, the negative, everything is meant to be used for the service of Hashem. So if it's a mitzvah object, of course you use it for the service of Hashem by doing the mitzvah. If it's a permissible object, use it for the service of Hashem by using it for the right purpose, in the right way. Make a bracha before you eat it, make a bracha after you eat it l'shem shamayim, eat it with the intention, the only reason you're eating it is to give you the strength to serve Hashem. But what about forbidden things? How do you serve Hashem with forbidden things? Very simple. By staying away from it with the intention that I'm staying away from this, not because I don't like it, I do like it, I'm tempted. And I'm not doing it because Hashem told me not to. By that, I'm glorifying Hashem. And that's true in every area of life. So why did people ask, if I'm not supposed to get involved in this and this, why did Hashem create it? Why did Hashem make this device that I'm told I shouldn't use? He made it so that you shouldn't use it. By not using it, you're glorifying Hashem. Right. So Mrs. Morris is saying it comes down to freedom of choice. reason why there has to be the opportunity to stray is that there should be freedom of choice. But this gives a slightly different perspective on it. It's not just, okay, we have to have bad in the world so that there should be freedom of choice. You got to suffer. The approach should be when we come across the opportunity to misunderstand or to stray or to get it wrong, to do the wrong thing, we should look at it as a positive experience. It's an incredible opportunity because by desisting, by staying away from that which we're supposed to stay away from, we're fulfilling a positive act of a hasiru it's even better. It's in a totally positive sense. Remove the foreign gods from your midst. The foreign God exists there, only that you should have the privilege of removing it. And by that, making the world exactly where Hashem wants it. So why are there certain situations in a home and in life that are iffy and shouldn't be, so that we should have the privilege of getting it out of the way, and in that way we're serving Hashem. As Alter Rebbe in Tanya talks about a person getting depressed because he's having distracting thoughts. Alter Rebbe says, don't get depressed about it. Consider it a privilege. Eibush is giving you distracting thoughts, and you're rejecting them. And by doing so, you're causing an incredible divine energy to come down into the world. To rejoice that you're fulfilling a mitzvah. Positive. Gives a positive spin to the whole thing. Yeah. We move on to Tanya. We are in chapter 49, page Samach S.
258, 257.
Thank you very much. 258, 257, the numbers on the bottom of the page. So we'll start right in the middle of the page. At the end of the brackets, you see right in the middle of the page, you see a brackets. Right at the end of the brackets, the first word after the brackets is the tachlis. So we talked about last week various tzimtzumim, various contractions. You have the Ein Sof, you have the infinite light of Hashem, absolutely infinite. And if that was directly involved in creation without any contractions, creation would also be infinite. And Hashem's presence would be absolutely recognizable and overpowering in every creation, to the point where you look at a creation, you see only Hashem's power, you didn't see the creation. Nothing would be limited in any way. That's not what Hashem had in mind. Therefore, he created the world through many, many tzimtzumim, many contractions that take the infinite light of Hashem and diminish it and conceal it and make it not recognizable, so that the world's presence should become more recognizable and more recognizable as you go through the Seder, the order of the worlds, till you get down to the lowest world, which is this physical world, a world that naturally feels itself and doesn't feel God's presence at all. And in this world, he has placed a human being, physical human being, as you said before about the free choice. He made it, not only gave us free choice, he made it in such a way that our natural choice would be to serve ourselves. And Hashem says, you human being that I've made you with the natural choice of serving yourself, I want you to transcend your nature and serve me. Make this world a dwelling place for Hashem. So all the tzimtzumim, all this whole lengthy process that we described at length last week, going from one world to another, and there's myriads of contractions. All this is in order to be able to create space for man to fulfill man's purpose of existence. So Hashem has infinite light, infinite angels, infinite celestial realms, and he's moved everything out of the way for us. So the tachlis kol hatzimtzumim, the ultimate purpose of all these contractions, is to create the body of the corporeal man. And the corporeal man obviously has tendencies that are not godly. And he should subdue the sitra. In other words, he has a sitra achla dimension to him. There is the other side that is drawing him in the wrong direction. And despite the fact that he's being drawn in the wrong direction very strongly and very powerfully, he's going to subdue that sitra achla. He's going to create the advantage of light when it comes against the backdrop of darkness. In other words, the light that the angels are generating isn't such exciting light, because it's not light that was created through the transformation of darkness. But we physical people, with the challenges that the physical world brings with it. When we serve Hashem, we're taking, and despite the fact that we Yetzer Hara that's pulling us in the opposite direction, and we tell the Yetzer Hara to go fly a kite, and I'm going to do what Hashem wants, and not what the Yetzer Hara wants. So when a person, a human being, does that, they're transforming darkness into light. And when darkness is transformed into light, it's incredibly great light. By man elevating his godly soul and his life-giving animal soul and their garments. Because we said that the soul has 10 faculties, which are intellectual and emotional. And then it has 3 garments, thought, speech, and deed. So when a person lives his life in accordance with the way Torah expects of him, so he's elevating the godly soul and bringing along the animal soul as well, and its garments of thought, speech, and deed, the whole keiches haguf and all the energies of the body, they all become elevated to Hashem Himself, as we explained before at length. This is the ultimate purpose of the whole system of the chain of the worlds, going from one world to another. It's all to arrive at the ultimate destination of the world of corporeal man, so that corporeal man can serve Hashem, transform the darkness into light, and make a dwelling place for Hashem in the lowest realm. So, when we think about how Hashem has put his infinite light aside to make room for us. So if you remember, we spoke in the earlier chapter, we spoke about the concept of kamayim apanim lapanim kein leva adam la adam. The way a person looks into the water, the reflection that he's going to see in the water is dependent on what he shows into the water. You show a smiling face into the water, you're going to see a smiling reflection. Show an angry face into the water, you're going to see an angry reflection. Similarly, it says, Leva Adam La Adam. The nature of one person to another is that if a person feels that someone else cares about them, it's going to naturally make them care about the other person. Somebody feels that somebody else loves them, it's going to make them love the other person. So the same thing is true in our relationship with Hashem. When we focus on how much Hashem loves us, it causes us to love Hashem. So in a few chapters back, we were speaking about it. We gave an analogy of a great king that leaves his palace and goes down to the lowest of the lowest, the most ordinary and subordinary place, finds a homeless, down and out person, pulls him out of the terrible place in which he finds himself, brings him back to the royal palace, takes him into the most inner chamber in the royal palace, and over there he embraces him and he showers him with love and gives him a tremendous amount of attention and gifts and everything. The love that's common, or less than a common, is going to feel towards the king is unbelievable. So if we should think that this is exactly our story. We were in Mitzrayim, most decadent place on earth, and Hashem came to us with his whole entourage, comes down to us in Mitzrayim, took us out. Huvalei Malach, Huvalei Saraf, he sent an angel to take us out, and he sent a burning angel to take us out, he sent the messenger to take us out. And Hashem himself came and whisked us out of Mitzrayim, brought us to Har Sinai, where he gave us the Torah, which is a form, we explain that Torah is like kissing, gave us the mitzvahs, which are like embracing, and he united with us in the most incredible way. So if we think about it, it surely will make us feel a tremendous love for Hashem. So what does it mean that Hashem came all the way down to us? And the later chapter, afterwards, he explained how the Yetzias Mitzrayim is not just a story that happened 3,000 years ago, it's something that happens all the time. Explain what Mitzrayim is spiritually and what Yetzias Mitzrayim is spiritually. Our neshama is trapped in the Nefesh, and Hashem helps us to liberate our neshama. So this idea of coming down from so high to so low, this is the whole process of tzimtzumim that exists in the process of creation, contraction after contraction, diminishing after diminishing, concealment after concealment, thousands of levels of concealment, all to be able to reach our level, to be able to give us our existence. So hine kamayim apanim l'panim, k'meishar kadosh baruch hu prayach l'niach v'siluk v'tzad echad derech mashal os'erei hagadol abdul b'tachlis, just like the Almighty, as it were, put to one side, by way of analogy, his great infinite light, the gunza, and he hid it away, v'estira, and he concealed it, the gimel minutes and tzumim training, in 3 different categories of various tzimtzumim. We said that even though there's myriads of tzimtzumim, but they all are generalized into 3 general categories, Bri, Yetzirah, corresponding to the 3 worlds of Bri, Yetzirah, and Asiyah. It's all intended because of his love for man down here. To give him the opportunity to rise up to Hashem. Because because of the fact that we find ourselves in a dark world where there's no revelation of God. And here in this world we serve Hashem, that gives us the opportunity to elevate ourselves to Hashem at the highest level. Here the Alter Rebbe brings an interesting concept. Normally, tzimtzum, shrinking, and concealing, and limiting, comes from gevura. Here we're saying that because of Hashem's love for us, he contracted himself. Where do we find that love brings to contraction? It's the opposite. Love brings to expansion. Gevura brings to contraction. So he says, the Gemara says, Ava dechekes habasar. Love makes the flesh shrink. And it illustrated very simply. Let's say you have 4 people sitting on the bench. And a 5th person comes along and he wants to sit down. Excuse me, is the place for me? So what's the answer? Depends who he is. If he's a person that they like, they will make themselves a little bit tighter. They'll make room for him. If the person that they don't like, there's no room for him. So if you like someone, you shrink a little bit and there becomes place. So the Eibishter, in his infinite love for us, shrunk himself for his infinite height through so many tzimtzumim. Because Ava dechekes habasar. So if we think about what the Eibishter has done to make room for us, Alachas kama v'kama, how much more so? The kifli kiflayim, so many times multiplied. The enketz, infinitely. It's appropriate for man as well to put aside all his interests. Whether they're spiritual interests or physical interests. And give everything up. To cleave to Hashem. With cleaving, chasheka, and desire, and strong will. Nothing should block the person, nothing should hinder the person, nothing should prevent the person from within or from without. No desires that are going in within the person should be more powerful than his desire to give himself up to Hashem. Or external things that are going on, circumstances in life. I would love to do it, but circumstances are such and such. If you realize how much Hashem loves you and how much Hashem does for you, and specifically in this area of how Hashem contracts himself to make your existence be the way it is, then you're going to be prepared to put aside all your interests, whether they are. Nothing will hinder you. Not from within and not from without. Like guf like nefesh, not body, not soul. Like mame, not monetary concerns. Not wife and children, family concerns. Put everything aside for Hashem, just like He put everything aside for us. Now we'll understand very well the institution of our Chachamim. So our Chachamim established brachas before the reading of Shema. We know the obligation to read the Shema every morning and every night is a biblical obligation. But the Chachamim added to the biblical obligation of reading the Shema every morning and every night that it should be preceded by 2 blessings in the morning and 1 blessing before the Shema, 1 blessing after. First blessing is Yetzer HaMa'ires, the second bracha is Habeichem Avishol Ba'ava. And then after the Shema comes Emes V'Yatziv, and finish Baruch Hashem Ba'al Yisrael. And in the evening, there's 2 brachas that precede the Shema, Amari Barabim and Eyev Ama Yisrael. And there's 2 brachas that come after the Shema, Baruch Hashem Ba'al Yisrael, and Baruch Hashem Shem Eres Ama Yisrael Orad. On Shabbos we say a slightly different expression, but the gist is that there's 2 brachas before the Shema, 1 after the Shema in the morning, 2 brachas before the Shema, 2 brachas after the Shema in the evening. So if you read these brachas, you wonder, how are they connected to the Shema? Why are they called Brichas Krishma? Before we do a mitzvah, before we say Hallel, we say Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Ha'olam Asher Kedushanim V'Mitzvayis V'Tzman V'Likra Yisrael. I know exactly this is the bracha for Hallel. Before I put on tefillin, I make Baruch Asher Kedushanim V'Tzman V'Niach Tefillin. So I know it's a bracha for tefillin. Before you take Challah, you make a bracha Baruch Atah Asher Kedushanim V'Tzman V'Niach. So you know it's a bracha for Challah. But before you bench lift, after you bench lift, it's a check. So it's one Hazik Shabbos Kodesh. You know it's the bracha for the mitzvah of Shabbos Kodesh. But what is the bracha of Yetzer HaMa'ires? The bracha of Aveicha Yisrael Ba'ava have to do with Shema. In fact, the Beis Yosef brings a halacha in the name of the Rav. It says that if a person reads the Shema early, because he wants to make sure to get the Shema in the proper time, and therefore he reads the Shema without the bracha. Then it comes the time for davening, comes to the brachas of Shema. Say the brachas there. And he says that he doesn't really have to say the Shema in between. Just say the Shema already. You could say the bracha, and the next bracha, and then go on to Zemesh V'Yatzim. Doesn't have to say the Shema in between. Our minhag is that we do say the Shema. Even if we said Shema already before, we repeat it in its proper place in davening. But the halacha, there is room to say that you can say the brachas and omit the Shema. You said the Shema already. Why? The Rashba says, because these brachas are not directly connected to the Shema. You don't say Asher Kedushanim Mitzvahs V'Anu Likrei Shema. You said Asher Kedushanim Mitzvahs V'Anu Likrei Shema. You would have to right away say Shema. But here it's a bracha. Abeichem Amisol Ba'ava. No. So Abeichem Amisol Ba'ava, and you can say Emes V'Yatzim. Nicht gefährlich. So if that's the case, why then did the Chachamim institute lechatchila that should be read before, these brachas should be said before and after the Shema? And why are they called birchos kriyas Shema if they have nothing to do with kriyas? Obviously, they were instituted and intended lechatchila to be said before and after the Shema. So they must have a connection with the Shema. So he says, after what we just explained, that the whole idea is that you should think about how Hashem has put himself aside in his love for us and devoted himself to us. And because of, in order to facilitate our existence, we went through all these tzimtzumim. You'll understand why the Chachamim instituted the brachas before Krishna. Two brachas before Shema in the morning, and the chulu alludes to the fact that there's also two brachas before Shema in the evening. At first glance, they don't seem to have any connection with the reading of Shema. The concept, the words, the reading of Shema don't appear in these brachas. As we just quoted from the Rashba and other codifiers that say that essentially you don't even have to read the Shema after saying the brachas because they don't directly connect with Shema. But then if that's the case, then the question is, why are they called the blessings of the Shema? Why were they originally instituted to be said specifically as an introduction to the Shema? But rather the explanation is the whole point of Kriya Shema is to inspire oneself to fulfill. You should love the Lord your God with all your heart. And what does it mean with all your heart? When the word heart in Hebrew is late, so your heart should be libcha. Here it says b'chol levavcha with an extra base, which our sages tell us means b'shnei yitarecha with both your inclinations. Which means what do you mean to love Hashem with both your inclinations? So in other places of Chassidus it's explained differently, but over here it's explained to love God with your good inclination. It's very simple. Your good inclination wants you to love God. It's inspiring you to love God. It's pushing you to love God. So you're going to love God with your good inclination. Very good. How do you love God with your evil inclination? It means, despite the fact that the evil inclination is trying to draw you away from the love of God, nevertheless, you say, I'm sorry. I'm going to do the opposite of what the evil inclination is telling me. Which means to stand up against everything that is hindering me from loving Hashem. So all the things that naturally would hinder me from loving Hashem, I'm going to stand up to them, overrule them, and love Hashem anyway. So levavcha, when it says b'chol levavcha with all your heart, that means despite the fact that the natural state of a human being is that his heart is drawn elsewhere, nevertheless I'm going to love Hashem. So Chazal tell us levavcha levavcha refers to a person's natural devotion and love for his wife and children, which naturally a person is connected with them. Like our sages say on the pasuk, Hu Amar Vayehi, he said, the Almighty said, and it became. Zuisha, that refers to the natural connection that there is between a husband and a wife. He commanded and it's established Elubanim is the natural connection between parents and children. So naturally a person puts his family first and comes along the Torah and says in a case where the Eibishter requires of you a certain mitzvah, that should go ahead of everything. When it says with all your soul and with all your might, or as it's explained, vayidacha can mean, often the Mishnah explains, means your money, your wealth. The mashmai, as is understood, chayu, mazena, your health and your sustenance. The hafkir, akel, b'shel Hashem, put everything on the line for your love of Hashem. So that's what the Shema is trying to inspire you to be so intensely in love with Hashem that it should trump any other devotion, any other interest, any other care that a person has should be overshadowed by his love for Hashem. So how could you expect a corporeal person to come to such an intense level of love of Hashem? That's why the bracha of Yetzer comes first. Over there it talks about how the angels stand at the way they devote themselves to Hashem, nullify themselves to Hashem, sanctify Hashem, and how they speak about how the greatness of Hashem is completely beyond them, and how they focus on the fact we can learn further about how the role of the Jewish people in the whole situation of the creation of the world, and how Hashem is the essence of His glory is focused on Yidden, Klal Yisrael, who are going to serve Him in this physical world. And then we speak in the next bracha about Hashem's incredible love for the Jewish people, and how He puts everything aside just for Yidden. And that realization itself will help us develop that very intense love that is required of us in the Shema. So the focusing on the process of Tzimtzum, Hashem put everything aside for us, will help us be able to fulfill the mitzvah of Ahavtas Hashem Elokecha. We'll come back to this mitzvah. Shana Tova, but Limud Chassidus and Medarkei Chassidus to everyone. We have good Shabbos and a good Yom Tov. All the Farbrengens should bring good results. Yidden should have a big Nitzachon and a big Yeshua. Sorry.